Hey there, guys. It's me, Sam, from the future, and John and I spent some time at the beginning of the podcast here talking about random junk. You might notice this is a pretty long episode, so if you want to just kind of skip ahead, just hone in on the part where we're actually talking about Words of Radiance, skip ahead like 6 minutes from where you are right now, okay? Or if you want to listen to the random stuff, be my guest. Love you. Mwah.
Okay.
All right, let's get the show on the road.
All right.
Hey, how do we do an intro?
Hey, Sam, you read any good books lately?
No.
Oh, yeah, me neither. I've been thinking about reading some stuff. I just ordered some books on Amazon.
The Twilight Saga.
Barnes & Noble. Oh, yeah.
Pretty good.
Recently?
Highly recommend.
Yeah, I've never read those, but I mean, if you think it's good, I'd consider it.
I actually did enjoy those books when I read them back in like middle school.
Yeah. I thought about reading them like 8th, 9th grade.
I read them just before everyone started really hating Twilight.
Yeah, it was like when the movies came out that people started really hating it. It seemed like.
Like back then, they're certainly not books for a male audience, right? Those are.
Oh yeah, definitely not.
They're targeted towards teenage girls, but this was back when I just read a ton of stuff very indiscriminately, right? If it was fiction, I was on top of it, you know.
Right.
So I read the
when you didn't have a Terry Pratchett book readily at hand.
Yeah. So I read those books, and I thought they were fine. You know, good, decent, fun. Maybe not literary masterpieces, but I enjoyed them. And then the movies came out, and as soon as the first movie came out, that was like the instant everyone started hating Twilight.
Mm-hmm. It seems like a lot of things that are like actually really decent media for like a given audience, you know, once it like blows up, will become unpopular somehow. And
yeah.
Once people like age out of that audience, they'll look back on it and be like, "Oh, how cringe that I was into that."
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. That's definitely I guess a shame of things getting exposed to a wider audience. Because like, if Twilight had just continued to be something that really only existed in this little like bubble of teenage girls who were like kind of goth, like it would have been great, and it would have become a cult classic, and people would have loved it forever. But because it kind of exploded, it kind of burst out into this larger audience before it had a chance to become a cult classic. You know?
Yeah.
What can you do?
Kind of the same thing. Not quite to the same extent, but I think Hunger Games was similar. Like, I read Hunger Games right before the movies were made, and it, like, blew up, and everybody was like, Hunger Games, okay.
Oh, really?
Like, when I read it, people were like, it felt like that. It was, like, this cool thing that, like, not a ton of people have read, but, like, when I read it, I was like, this is amazing. Why don't more people know about this? And then more people found out, and it wasn't, like, a special anymore.
Yeah, that was one for me. I really loved the first. I think I read those books pretty much as they came out, and I really loved the first one, and I liked the second one, and by the time I finished it, I was kind of over the hype myself, because it just, you know, I think you'll hear a lot of people say that it felt rushed, and I agree with that. I think the third book felt like it was like, well, gotta wrap this up and just like cram everything into these last 100 pages, and it felt kind of
yeah, I guess it kind of did.
What's the word I'm looking for? Like unceremonious, almost, like just.
Sure.
That's not exactly the word, but like characters were dying, and like cool stuff was happening, and it was trying to like deliver this political message, but.
Right, it was like, it wasn't taking its time, so it was like, here's a bunch of meaningful stuff, but I'm giving it all to you like it's candy off of a float in the middle of a parade.
Yeah, the problem is that as Wit talks about, are we doing the podcast, by the way? Is this like in the podcast? I don't know.
Been recording since we were talking about my cat. Like, you're gonna have to cut out a bunch of this if you don't want.
We'll see. I don't know what I'll do. As Wit talks about, though, later on in the book, you know, once you set a precedent for doing something really, really well, right? Then if you even just barely don't reach that bar of quality you've set for yourself, people are going to think you're terrible, right?
Right.
So I think that
I love the epilogue.
That kind of what happened to me with Hunger Games was that I just liked the first book a lot.
Right.
So then when
it couldn't live up.
When I feel like those books almost each one was like a little bit worse than the previous for me, you know. Yeah. And when that's the case, it's just a bummer.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of interesting with Brandon Sanderson because I feel like his work is pretty widely known. I mean, it's not on like the scale of like movies that have been made and everybody knows about it, so I don't think it's reached that critical point.
Yeah.
But it seems like he's much more well known than a lot of like, I don't know, like whatever the author of Hunger Games. Can't remember her name.
I don't know.
And Twilight. Like, I think that it's more well known than both of those were before they hit the movie critical point where people started not liking it. I mean, I guess
the thing is that
Twilight, we've kind of seen her different, but
Brandon Sanderson has a couple of things going for him. I think first off that he's really good, so it's like it's hard for people to not like.
Yeah,
but also
he's so consistently good.
That I feel like still the only people who really read Brandon Sanderson books are people who like fantasy, right?
That's true. Yeah, that's fair.
So like I feel like he's still kind of within the fantasy bubble because while a greater audience knows about Brandon Sanderson, I don't know that greater audience has actually explored much Brandon Sanderson.
Sure. Yeah, I can see that. I was just like, I don't know, in the middle of reading this section, I was just like on a real Sanderson kick, and I went and looked at like his blog for the state of the Sanderson that I talked about again with like his whole Cosmere list out, and I was like, oh man, that 4th Mistborn Era 2 book's coming out soon. I can just start reading those now. And I was like, why haven't I read everything he's ever written?
Yeah, and you really need to. I'm going to go back and reread Warbreaker, I've decided. Probably while we're going through Oathbringer, honestly.
Yeah, might be a good call based on something
that happens. All right, let's start the podcast in earnest. What I'll probably do, John, I think I've just decided, I'm going to put my voice at the beginning, like, hey, we're just going to talk about a bunch of junk, and if you want to skip it, go 5 minutes ahead, or you can listen whatever.
Sure, yeah.
And, all right, now here we are. Now it's 5 minutes ahead. Right. Welcome.
Hey,
if you skipped ahead, I still love you. I do.
Yep. This is
a little bit less than the people who listened, but a lot. You know?
You were definitely in, like, A tier, right?
Yeah.
But... Sam and John's book club. We're talking about Words of Radiance, a book we just finished, the second in the Stormlight Archive.
Yeah, so I'm thinking that this video / podcast is probably going to be a little bit longer than they normally are because I want to use this opportunity to do like a full book retrospective as well, and maybe even a bit of a retrospective over the first 2 books as a unit.
Yeah.
So
I think that's a good idea.
Normally I feel like I'm happy with an episode if we ended like around 50 minutes. And I feel like this one might go like an hour and a half, and I just don't really know. So
and it's a good thing we started with all that junk at the beginning to really just pad our time.
Yeah. So people are going to look at this and they'll be like, an hour 35? Are you kidding me? But hey, it's like, it might happen. I don't know. Either way, as I already mentioned with John, I don't know if this is included. Did I say this before we started recording? I think I did. I'm going to let him kind of take the reins on this episode because I feel like a lot of this part of the book's value, I think a lot of the reason I enjoyed it the first time around was because there were some sort of big impactful surprises, and I have already read all of these books. There have been parts that I've enjoyed more, I think, because I didn't remember them all that well, and now I get to like experience them kind of for the first time, but also with all of this context of having already read stuff that comes in the future, and I've like caught some stuff that I missed that was really fun. Unfortunately, for this particular chunk, I remembered it really, really well, and it wasn't quite as much fun for me as I'd hoped. Yeah. So I think we're gonna look at this through John's eyes more or less, and I'll like commentary and ask questions and stuff. But John, I guess take us away. Or actually, something I also want to do. We had always said like when we get to the end of part 4, we were gonna read the whole letter, and we never did.
Oh yeah.
So I do want to go back and read maybe both of the letters. Should I do that now?
Okay.
Before we get into it.
Yeah, sure, why not?
Okay, I'm gonna read both the letters, and I'll if you want to skip these, I'll edit myself in telling you when to skip to.
Because I forgot that the second letter, we may have put the second letter together, but I don't think we ever did it with the first. So I think that would be a good thing to do before we get into this part.
Yeah. All right. So the first letter goes, "Old friend, I hope this missive finds you well. Though, as you are now essentially immortal, I would guess that wellness on your part is something of a given. I realize that you are probably still angry. That is pleasant to know. Much as your perpetual health, I have come to rely upon your dissatisfaction with me. It is one of the Cosmere's great constants, I should think. Let me first assure you that the element is quite safe. I have found a good home for it. I protect its safety like I protect my own skin, you might say. You do not agree with my quest. I understand that, so much as it is possible to understand someone with whom I disagree so completely. Might I be quite frank? Before, you asked why I was so concerned. It is for the following reason. Ati was once a kind and generous man, and you saw what became of him. Race, on the other hand, was among the most loathsome, crafty, and dangerous individuals I had ever met. He holds the most frightening and terrible of all the shards. Ponder on that for a time, you old reptile, and tell me if your insistence on non-intervention holds firm. Because I assure you, Race will not be similarly inhibited. One need only look at the aftermath of his brief visit to Cell to see proof of what I say. In case you have turned a blind eye to that disaster, know that Aona and Sky are both dead, and that which they held has been splintered, presumably to prevent anyone from rising up to challenge Race. You have accused me of arrogance in my quest. You have accused me of perpetuating my grudge against Raish and Bavadin. Both accusations are true. Neither point makes the things I have written to you untrue. I am being chased. Your friends of the 17th Shard, I suspect. I believe they're still lost, following a false trail I left for them. They'll be happier that way. I doubt they have any inkling what to do with me should they actually catch me. If anything I have said makes a glimmer of sense to you, I trust that you'll call them off. Or maybe you could astound me and ask them to do something productive for once. For I have never been dedicated to a more important purpose, and the very pillars of the sky will shake with the results of our war here. I ask again, support me. Do not stand aside and let disaster consume more lives. I've never begged you for something before, old friend. I do so now. And this whole letter we've already talked about, kind of chopped up into parts.
Yep.
In previous episodes, so I don't think we need to go back in and kind of analyze anything in that. But it gives context for what's coming up here. And actually, John, since I just read that one, here, I'll send you the full text of this other one, over, and you can read this one.
Ooh, oh boy. Okay. We're popcorning this.
We're popcorning this. Sent it as a text file, I guess. All right.
Yep. Okay. All right. Here we go.
So that first letter, just context, was from Hoid to some mysterious recipient, and these are obviously two incredibly ancient, all-knowing beings. If this guy's on a level with Hoid, right? And the stuff they're dealing with is on the scale of the entire Cosmere, trying to save the world, maybe the worlds as we know it/them.
Oh, mine. This is very long.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
How do you? It's on 4 different lines, so I have to keep scrolling sideways to see all of it. Is there a way I can make this easier to read?
Oh, did you open it in Notepad?
Yep.
Let me here. Take 2. I'll send you a picture of the text.
All right, that's fine. What else can you open text files with?
Notepad++. It's
okay.
you don't really install that unless you do coding stuff. So.
Right, I kind of figured it out.
All right, there you go. There's a picture of the text. Is that a big? Can you see that?
Yeah.
Right, cool.
I'll have to lean in here a little bit. Okay. All right, it's this whole deal. All right. I'll address this letter to my old friend, as I have no idea what name you're using currently. Have you given up on the gemstone now that it is dead? And do you no longer hide behind the name of your old master? I am told that in your current incarnation you've taken a name that references what you presume to be one of your virtues. This is, I suspect, a little like a skunk naming itself for its stash.
All right, let's stop there briefly to actually discuss this one as we go. So this is in response to Hoyd's letter. Have you given up on the gemstone now that it is dead? Don't know what that means. You no longer hide behind the name of your old master, Hoyd, right? So now he's going by Wit. This is just in reference to that. Taking a name that references what you presume to be one of your virtues. Ha 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 ha. He's making a jab at him. How you call yourself Wit?
Yeah.
Lol.
Yep.
That's all.
Yeah. Okay. Now look what you've made me say. You've always been able to bring out the most extreme in me, old friend. And I do still name you a friend for all that you weary me. Yes, I'm disappointed. Perpetually, as you put it. Is not the destruction we have wrought enough? The worlds you now tread bear the touch and design of
Adonalsium?
Adonalsium? Sure, that sounds good. Our interference so far has brought nothing but pain. My path has been chosen very deliberately. Yes, I agree with everything you have said about race, including the severe danger he presents. However, it seems to me that all things have been set up for a purpose, and if we, as infants, stumble through the workshop, we risk exacerbating, not preventing, a problem.
So, don't know who Adonalsium is, but the worlds now bear his touch and design, so that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
I really like this kind of philosophy here, you know? If we, as infants, stumble through the workshop, we risk exacerbating, not preventing a problem. This is actually really kind of religious philosophy here, isn't it? Like, it's basically saying that some greater power, right, has set things in motion and has a design, and if we try to, change things on a scale we don't understand, we may end up just
making things worse.
Yeah, messing up the plan of this greater intelligence or whatever.
Yeah, throwing the system on.
Yeah.
Okay, turning my lights off turns the fan off, so I'm gonna turn my air conditioning on, or I'm gonna die.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know. That's kind of cool. Whoever Hoyt is reaching out to is not planning on helping. Well.
Yep. Seems like that letter did not achieve what he was hoping. All right. Next paragraph. Race is captive. He cannot leave the system he now inhabits. His destructive potential is, therefore, inhibited. Whether this was Tenavast's design or not, millennia have passed without race taking the life of another of the 16. While I mourn for the great suffering race has caused, I do not believe we could hope for a better outcome than this. He bears the weight of God's own divine hatred, separated from the virtues that gave it context. He is what we made him to be, old friend, and that is what he, unfortunately, wished to become. I suspect that he is more a force than an individual now. Despite your insistence to the contrary, that force is contained and an equilibrium reached.
Okay, so Tanavast is honor, right? He's one of the shards of Roshar. Mm-hmm. And race is Odium, maybe, I think?
I'm pretty sure.
And it sounds like Odium is now bound to Roshar. Roshar has become his prison, which sucks for Roshar. Oof.
Yeah, big bummer.
He says, millennia have passed without race taking the life of another of the 16. Those would be the 16 shards. It sounds like he killed the ones on Cell, which is where the book... Elantris, that's the one. Yep, that's where Elantris took place. Mm-hmm. And has he killed others? I don't remember. Maybe he said so in the first letter.
Yeah.
And, well, now it sounds like he's killed Tanavast as well, right?
Yep, which we kind of knew to be the case.
Well, I mean, Honor keeps talking about how he's dead and whatnot in Dawnar's visions.
Right,
so,
yeah.
Yeah. Yada yada. He bears the weight of God's own divine hatred. Now, this time, he just says God.
Right. All of them have had names.
So is there some god that's like... Because like, the 16 shards are kind of the gods of the worlds of the Cosmere, right? But is there some, like, one true god up above everything else? It kind of sounds like there is.
I think so, yeah. Right. And I think that kind of comes up in the epilogue a little bit, too.
Dang. Well, hot dog. All right. Last paragraph.
Yep. You, however, have never been a force for equilibrium. You tow chaos behind you like a corpse dragged by one leg through the snow. Please hearken to my plea. Leave that place and join me in my oath of non-intervention. The Cosmere itself may depend on our restraint. So he's like, yep, I'm not helping.
Yep. Hoyd, you are an agent of chaos, and you know it's good for the Cosmere. You will just butt out.
Right.
Yeah. So they've taken up extreme stances. They both seem convinced that the other person needs to do what they're doing, or the Cosmere itself is doomed.
Right, and neither of them can agree to the other side. So I guess they're just sticking with their own deal.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So those are. Hey, we read the letters. Now onwards to chapter 82.
Yeah. So can you read the little thingies? I'll never write them down because I assume you always do.
Yeah, and actually last time in the first part of chapter 5 we did not go through any of the diagram stuff. So I guess while we're already doing all of this, let me also go through diagrams.
Sure. Yeah, might as well.
All right. So the first diagram thingy was obviously they are fools. Yada yada yada. Wait. Sorry, I was actually reading them in the wrong order. I was reading them ordered by which part of the room they were in. I will read them in the order they appear instead. Okay.
Yeah.
They will come. You cannot stop their oaths. Look for those who survive when they should not. That pattern will be your clue. So, Knights Radiant.
Pretty well covered, yeah.
One danger in deploying such a potent weapon will be the potential encouragement of those exploring the Nile bond. Care must be taken to avoid placing these subjects in situations of powerful stress unless you accept the consequences of their potential investiture. When he says potent weapon, that makes me think he's talking about Zeth, right?
Yep.
Encouraging those exploring the Nile bond. My guess is that when he says the Nile bond, that is the bond of one of the orders of Knights Radiant.
Yep, I assume so.
Care must be taken to avoid placing these subjects in positions of powerful stress, because presumably that powerful stress will trigger their, ascendance to radiancy.
Powers, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Next one. But they were left behind. It is obvious from the nature of the bond, but where? Set off, obvious. Realization like apricity. I don't know what apricity means. They are with the Shin. We must find one. Can we make to use truthless? Can we craft a weapon? And here he's talking about the honor blades, I suspect. And when he says craft a weapon, I think that is Zeth. I don't think that's the sword itself.
Right, yeah, I agree.
Question: for what essential must we strive? Answer: the essential of preservation, to shelter a seed of humanity through the coming storm. Question: what cost must we bear? Answer: the cost is irrelevant. Mankind must survive. Our burden is that of the species, and all other considerations are but dust by comparison. So here he has spelled out his incredibly the ends justify the means thing. However, I'm kind of agreeing with him here. Like if this is the only way to guarantee that some seed of humanity survives, and it sounds like he's saying 99% of humanity or even more may die off.
Right.
But if we can get that just a couple of us kicking, right?
Mm-hmm. We're gonna be much better off.
The next one: you must become king of everything. Okay, straightforward.
Yep.
The unmade are a deviation, a flare, a conundrum that may not be worth your time. You cannot help but think of them. They are fascinating. Many are mindless, like the spread of human emotions, only much more nasty. I do believe few can think, however. And here the unmade, we've already mentioned a couple of their names in the past. It sounds like they're responsible for the death rattles and maybe also the thrill.
Right.
And there are probably 10 of them because,
Of course.
Stormlight things. Okay, and now this is the one actually for chapter 82. There is one you will watch, though all of them have some relevance to precognition. Moloch is one of the most powerful in this regard. His touch seeps into a soul as it breaks apart from the body, creating manifestations powered by the spark of death itself. But no, this is a distraction. Deviation, kingship. We must discuss the nature of kingship. So Moloch is the one that does the death rattles, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's what we surmised earlier.
And here, the diagram clearly states, no, this is a distraction, right?
Yeah, it's like, don't worry about
so
it.
Why did he do the murder hospital? That's what I want to know.
Right. The murder hospital was like his thing. I mean, aside from assassinating everybody via Zeth, but like
it seems like he put a lot of time and energy into something that his, transcendently intelligent self said was a waste of time, right?
Right, yeah.
So
oopsie doopsie.
What can you do?
I mean, you just murdered a bunch of innocent people, what's the...
But he is also saying that Moloch's power is a form of precognition, right? Straight up seeing the future.
Right.
So that,
yeah.
I mean...
Could come in handy somehow, but... Yeah, did the death rattles do him a lot of good? Doesn't seem like it.
And now, John, at last, we can get to chapter 82.
Discuss what we've read. Yeah. Okay. So... Basically, Kaladin has been like, you know what, I do want to save the king. And he goes through this whole paradigm shift, I guess, where he's like, I'm going to do what Syl and all of the readers wanted me to do the whole time and just be a cool dude.
Yep.
And we're like, thank goodness, about time. We're like that Bible story where it's the rich father and his son comes back after wasting everything. He's like, I'm so glad you returned.
Oh, yeah.
We're like that. Kaladin's that son. We're like, hey, it took you long enough, but we're just glad you're
the
here.
prodigal son, right?
Yeah, exactly.
This whole book was just... What's that one Kafka book
Franz Kafka.
You like to reference?
Oh, the Metamorphosis.
Metamorphosis, yeah. It kind of felt like book 2 for Kaladin was sort of a metamorphosis thing, where things were just getting worse and worse and worse, but by his own hand, right? Unlike in the Metamorphosis, where everything was just completely absurd and he had no idea why it was happening.
Right.
And I think right at the moment where he had that line where he said, like, oh my god, Elokar is Dalinar's Tian, right? I think that was the instant where suddenly now we're on the upswing. And you know.
Right.
Because we fell so far, we're going to have to go up pretty fast.
Right. Luckily, Kaladin can fly.
Yeah.
So the king, he's super duper drunk, and Kaladin's like, we got to get you out of here, but his leg is like kind of broken, and he is not really letting it heal.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I got to get this cat off my desk. Trying to knock this light over. Okay. So he's like, all right, we gotta get you out of here, and he's like limping out, towing the king along. But Moash and Graves are here, and they're like, Kaladin, what are you doing? I thought we had all agreed this was cool. And Kaladin was like, we're just murderers in the dark, that's terrible. And Moash is like, you're not really convincing me.
Yeah, Kaladin said, I had to make the decision that would let me sleep at night, right? Which was Xyl's advice for him. So that was cool. I like that line.
Oh my god, cat.
This cat. All right. Also, Elhokar is like, why don't you just let me die or whatever? Like, Elhokar is just really drunk and depressed.
Right.
And Kaladin brings back around the fleet story that Wit told him,
Wit told him, or that rather Kaladin told Wit, if you want to think of it that way.
Oh, sure. And I really like this because, back when we read the story, I mentioned that I was like, I don't even really know what that was a metaphor for, right? I assumed it was something that was actually happening in Kaladin's life, but it turns out that, this act of racing the storm until you eventually die was just, that was a metaphor for life, a human life itself, right?
Yeah.
He's saying you will die.
Right, you're going to die anyway.
You inevitably die,
but
you have to run as best you can until that happens, right?
Right.
And I was like, oh,
yeah.
Thanks for explaining that to me, Ernest Anderson, because I never would have got it.
Right. A very elaborate metaphor for like, hey, you're gonna die someday, but try your best anyway.
Yeah. I mean, cool, good philosophy, right?
Yeah, I'm here for it. Yeah.
So here he's using it to motivate the king. Like you're running, you're trying really hard, and that's great. And let's try a little bit harder here, bud. Not die to this assassin.
And it's like we talked about in the last video, which I was misinterpreting. It seems like is that Elhokar is just like, I need to try my best, even if I don't do what I want to.
Yeah.
It's still worth.
Elhokar is trying.
He
just sucks.
He's just bad. Yeah. But he'll figure it out someday, I'm sure. Yeah. If he doesn't die. So basically, wait, let me see. Okay, no, that comes up in a later chapter, so just take things as we go here.
Yeah. It goes back to the battle, and Adolin is fighting Parshendi, and Navani has Fabrials floating around there like lanterns or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yep, yeah, just big battle against the Voidbringer Parshendi going on.
Dalinar is yelling at the Stormfather, who is actually responding, and it's not a pre-recorded thing, which we knew as the readers, I think, but Dalinar knows it now too.
Right.
So that's cool. And Moash and Graves catch up and confront Kaladin a little bit, and then the chapter ends.
Yeah. Yeah, they basically they're gonna fight, and Moash punches Kaladin in the chest, and he's like, "Oh, sorry, that was harder than I meant." My bad.
Yeah, because despite Moash's whole self, he still really likes Kaladin.
All right, yeah, he still respects him. They're pretty opposed on this particular assassination attempt.
I would go so far as to say Moash still kind of idolizes Kaladin.
Yeah, I mean, Kaladin liked him because he, saw him as a person more so than everybody else, but even Moash still kind of looks at him like a Christ-like figure.
Yeah. All right, next little diagram reading. Obviously, they are fools. The desolation needs no usher. It can and will sit where it wishes, and the signs are obvious that the Sprain anticipated doing so soon. The Ancient of Stones must finally begin to crack. It is a wonder that upon his will rested the prosperity and peace of a world for over 4 millennia. I think the Ancient of Stones might be Taln. One of his names was Stone Sinew.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It is a wonder that upon his will rested the prosperity and peace of a world for over 4 millennia. So it sounds like what kind of caused this desolation was him eventually cracking under the pressure of his eternal torture zone.
Right, yeah. His spooky moment.
So, he was doing his best to hold it off, but eventually he just broke because, 4,000 years, dude, nice. He did really good.
Take a break, yeah.
But alas.
Right, when he breaks through that gate in the city, when that was this book or last, where he's like, "It's coming, I failed, I'm sorry."
Yeah.
And Wit's like, "You're too late anyway, buddy. Don't sweat it."
Yeah, that was end of last book, and he did great. But I mean, this
Right.
is that because Amaram wanted to usher in the desolation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because he thought that it would bring about the Radiance or something. He had, some noble motive, presumably.
The heralds would like come back if the desolation happened because the Voidbringers would come back and they're like, the heralds will save us.
Yeah. So no.
Might as well just get it over with.
But Amaram's a big goof, according to this diagram writing.
Yep.
All right, and onwards to chapter 83.
Yep. So, Shallan's almost found the Oath Gate. She finds one like perfectly circular plateau that it seems like the rest of the Shattered Plains kind of shattered around.
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, "This is probably where it is. Go look for it, everybody." Meanwhile, Adolin pulls off a solid sneak attack against all the singing Parshendi. He goes around through like this hollow rock and pops out and starts just chopping them down. He says it's like fighting toddlers because they're not even paying attention.
Yeah. He's not feeling the thrill, he notices, which is maybe because that big unmade moved and it's not around anymore. Who knows?
Yeah. It was kind of like in book 1, Dalinar had that happen a couple times where he just like had a moment of like disgust at what he was doing.
Mm-hmm. And it makes me wonder, is that happening to more people in on the Shattered Plains, but we're just not hearing about it because they're not main characters?
Because this is like it might be crazy if Molak, who is perhaps responsible for he's the Death Rebels, whatever the Spren responsible for the thrill is, like that's a big tenet of just being a Lethe, it seems like, kind of in a way.
Yeah, and maybe that's because that Spren has just been chilling in Althkar for so long, right?
Right. Yeah, so if that changes, who knows what will follow.
Yeah.
He starts fighting Eshonai.
Yep.
Who's over there?
Bop, bop, bop.
But that's tricky. This cat is so much energy right now.
Is this the part where they actually go in? They do actually go in to that mound, right? On the big Oathgate Plateau?
Is that this chapter?
I think so.
I think that's right at the beginning of the next one.
All right.
When they find the actual Oathgate.
Sure.
Spoilers. Yeah.
Renarin has started, talking. He started getting really creepy and just talking about, the Everstar approaches, yeah.
Right, getting all doomsaying. So Dalinar is talking to the Stormfather. He's, trying to figure out his whole deal. He goes to a doctor to get all healed up, and the doctor's like, "You had a lot of scars. This arm shouldn't even work."
Yeah.
And Dalinar's like, "Yeah, don't worry about it." Buddy.
And I wonder if that's Stormlight related, or maybe related to his boon from the Night Watcher.
Oh, sure.
Because we still don't know what his boon from the Night Watcher is.
Right. Yeah, only know what his curse is.
Yeah.
So there's that. The storm being summoned by the Parshendi is like the opposite of the Stormfather, as we kind of come to find out. It's like they're going opposite directions. They're going to clap right in the middle of this battle.
It blows from the west. Yeah, they're in the middle of the weeping. A storm from the Stormfather should not be coming, but it is, and we'll find out why later.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We get more of Kaladin facing off against Moash and Graves, I guess.
Yep. And the Stormfather's just like, "Hey, you're boned, buddy. I don't know what to tell you."
Yep.
Okay. Yep. And then we're into chapter 84, and they found it. Hooray! National treasure moment.
The note at the beginning of this chapter was 111825101. Dude.
Yeah.
Listening to.
Oh God.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Kramer has a great voice. I love listening to Kramer say words.
Yeah.
But a long string of numbers, and he's not speeding through them either. He's saying them at a pretty decent pace. It's just
right.
Whew, that was
yeah.
Okay. Either way,
that sounds painful.
This long string of numbers decrypts to hold the secret that broke the Knight's Radiant. You may need it to destroy the New Orders when they return. And I don't think we know what the secret is that broke the Knight's Radiant, right?
Nope. Not really. We just know that it happened. But
we saw. I think that what we saw, the Recreants, right? That was kind of post. They were broken, and that was just the moment where they were they admitted it or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. So, what is that secret?
So Pattern is talking about the Everstorm and the High Storm coming. He's like, you gotta get everybody out of here because they're gonna collide and make each other more powerful and just shatter stone and like throw plateaus into the air. Like, just get everybody through the Oath Gate. I don't care how the battle's going. Yeah. And Shallan's like, so it shall be. She tells everybody to make it happen.
Renarin, this is where Shallan is like, what? Renarin's not wearing glasses. Is that a new thing? Yeah, and that was the exact moment where I was like, oh my god, Renarin is another Radiant, right? Mm-hmm. And or he was bitten by a radioactive spider. Because those are the only two things I can think of that suddenly make your Radiant get better.
Yeah, I was like, what is that about?
And now suddenly he's like saying all this creepy stuff about like what's going to happen, you know, because it's not common knowledge, I don't think, that this Everstorm is approaching, but Renarin sure knows.
Right. No reason that he would know it. Yeah.
And seeing the future is of the Voidbringers, right? Mm-hmm. So Renarin has some weird thing going on.
Adolin kicks Eshonai into the Grand Canyon. Nice.
Yeah.
Kaladin has the realization that he can't just protect the people he likes, and I was like,
whoa.
Wow.
That's
really?
Yeah, that, you know,
you gotta protect the people that can't protect themselves, even if you don't like them.
Yeah, I will protect even those I hate, so long as it is right. Yeah, so I mean, I honestly love those words. I think those are great words for the Storm Riders. What are they called? What's his order called? Oh my god.
Oh shoot.
The Windrunners.
Windrunners. Yes.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
Also, Adolin just kind of stumbles upon Szeth, and Szeth is going to go murder his dad, so that is unfortunate.
Hey, you know.
Yep.
Fish are going to swim, Szeth's going to assassinate Dalinar. It's just how it be.
It turns out Syl wasn't dead.
Yeah, she's fine. Thank goodness.
Yeah,
Stormfather, I mean, he seems like a little bit of a drama queen. Let's not undersell it here.
Yeah, Stormfather is like,
so
not
he was like,
cool.
You killed Syl. No, he's a bad dude.
So he had kind of forced Syl to stop chilling with Kaladin.
Right. And Syl was like, well, he's not really doing what he's supposed to, so.
But now Syl just like doesn't want to watch Kaladin die, and Kaladin is doing great, noble, honor-spread things. And he says the third set of words, and bada bing, bada boom, Syl turns into a Shardblade.
Yep. And hey, he's a full-on Radiant, pretty much at this point.
Yeah, and all of his powers return, bam, and he heals, bam, and suddenly, Moash and Graves...
He glows like a glow stick at the bottom of the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
And Moash and Graves are like, whoa, okay, alright, well, hey, bummer. And Graves is like, oh, we shouldn't have pushed him this hard, because now he did the thing, but we kept him away from Dalinar, which was what Taravangian told me to do, and we're like, whoa, what? Hey,
so
hold
Graves
on.
was a member of the diagram the whole time.
Mm-hmm. And he just starts laughing. He's like, well, hey, you know, good news and bad news. We did what we were supposed to. We made a Radiant by accident. Yeah, prison.
And Graves also, in that sentence, kind of reveals to Kaladin that Szeth is on his way to kill Dalinar, like, right now.
Yep.
You know, he says the diagram said that we needed to keep you from Dalinar, but in doing so, we didn't realize, you know, what that would cause you to become.
Mm-hmm.
And
right.
Yeah. So all right. So now Kaladin is, you know, out of the frying pan into the fire, and that he just saved Alucard, but now Dalinar's about to get murdered. So that,
yep.
Let's go take care of that.
So yep. So now we're back to these chapters are so hard to keep track of because the viewpoint switched like a million times in every single chapter. Because like it's nice because in the book, in the printed version, you know, at the beginning of each chapter there's like the little symbol, so you know immediately whose chapter it's gonna be. And for all of these, it would just like put on. I was like, whatever.
Sure.
It was like whoever was the first person.
The next little diagram thing is, but who is the wanderer, the wild piece, the one who makes no sense? I glimpse at his implications, and the world opens to me. I shy back. Impossible, is it? And that's Void. I mean, come on.
Mm-hmm.
Who else could that be?
Who else is going to be? Yeah, exactly. So we're back at the Oath Gate with Shallan. Renarin sticks his shard blade into the little lock here to open up the gate. He just starts going even more crazy than he has been. So, you know, we find out that's because he summoned the shard blade, but we'll get there. And Then, oh no, that's in a later one. Jeez, this is so hard to keep track of. And then when we switch to Dalinar, and I wrote it here, is Dalinar gonna die? I'll be really mad. And he's just fighting. He's fighting Zeth, doing his best here.
Yeah, Dalinar fights Zeth. Adolin fights Zeth.
We find out that Dalinar has Town's Honor Blade. Like, that's what he's fighting with.
Oh, it is?
Yep.
Oh.
Pretty sure that just came in there, yeah.
Okay. That would make sense.
Well,
it would make
I
sense
don't think
that would be the Honor Blade he went out and hit on the plains to bait Amaram, right?
Right. Yeah, that kind of contradict. Well, maybe it doesn't. Anyway, we'll get there.
No, it can't be the Honor Blade, actually, because of, I think, what you're
Right.
thinking of. All right, it was some other blade.
So,
I mean, the king has a lot of sharp blades lying
misunderstood
around,
that.
so...
Right, yeah. So he's fighting. It's going okay, but yeah.
Town's Honor Blade is still
What
chilling
do you
somewhere, but yeah.
So he's like literally about to die. He's like, the blade's been knocked out of his hands. He's been knocked down to his knees. He's like out of fighting or whatever. And he has this kind of moment of clarity where he lets go of his guilt for not being able to help Gavilar on the Night of the Ice.
Oh, sure, because he says, even if I had been stone cold sober, there's no way I would have been able to fight this monster, right?
Yep. So he's like, well, that's a nice thought to have right before I die. But then Royan just jumps on Seth's back.
Yeah, and Royan is the coward, right? He's the one where in Yasna's notes on the princes, she said that he was a coward, and people have been referring to him that way forever. But yeah, he ends up giving his life to save Dalinar, which is cool, but he does super die, so,
Right, yeah. Seth does the thing where he just lashes into the sky and then just walks away.
And
which is
despite
terrifying.
everybody's best efforts, Zeth manages to get a hand on Dalinar and sends him hurtling into space. And just like he did with Royan, he's presumably going to let the Stormlight out, and Dalinar is going to crash back down to Earth, and there's no way anyone can save him.
Yep.
Unless...
He just starts walking away. He's like, all right, I'm done. See ya. And Adolin's like... yelling all these insults. He's like, how could you do this? And Zeth's like, I don't even know you.
Yeah.
But what's this? Dalinar is floating down to Earth gently as if holding a parasol, and he's Peach in the Smash Bros. game.
Oh, I thought you were going for Mary Poppins. All right.
Well, same thing. So he's floating down, and Kaladin just is like a total badass in this moment. He like comes down, and Zeth is like freaking out because he's like, is this a Radiant? You have an Honor Blade. All of his warring inside of his head, and Kaladin's like, you threw that guy up into the sky? I own the sky. You can't do that.
Yeah, step off. When Kaladin comes crashing down into Earth here, I imagine him doing like 100%, like streaming with light, superhero landing, cracks the Earth a little bit where he hits.
Tiny little crater.
And lit up like iridescent smoke, like billows out from where he strikes the ground. That's what I'm imagining here. Kind of like Captain Marvel had a scene in her trailer where she came crashing down, and when she looked up and her eyes were glowing, and I'm like, that's Kaladin right there. That's my boy.
That's what's going down. Yep. So then he chases off Zeth so that Dalinar can get back to business. Dalinar's like, guess I'm not going to die. All right, somebody give me an update. Where are we at?
Yeah. The next little beginning of chapter thingy, one is almost certainly a traitor to the others. Don't even have further context on this one, I don't think. I guess, we can see that it was... it's actually in the desk drawer, and the desk drawer is the part talking about the Unmade.
Okay, so who's the Judas of the Unmade?
So one of the Unmade is going to end up being a bro, I think.
Yep.
Cool.
Hey, neato.
And then it's chapter 86.
Yep. The Oath Gates of Fabrial. Of course it is.
Bada bing, bada boom.
So Shallan is just like, well, can't really hide my radiant powers, and she's just sucking out Stormlight and filling up all the little lanterns to power the thing.
Yeah.
And she realizes that, well, I don't know how this came about, I just have this note, but the Storm Father made the storm even though it's the Weeping because he's mad, and he's like, humanity's doomed anyway, I just want to wipe him out.
Yeah, the Storm Father accelerated the storm. Dalinar's like, why did you send me the visions? Why were you helping me earlier, and now you're trying to kill us all? And the Storm Father's like, I was required to send you the visions. I had a deal. I signed a contract with Honor before he died, right? But I didn't want to do that stuff.
Like,
yeah.
Right. You're going to die anyway. Just stop trying, Dalinar.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like the Stormfather just being a big Debbie Downer about it.
Yeah, truly. So then Shallan's like talking about her, basically her same radiant blade,
Mm-hmm.
So it turns out her shard blade is pattern her radiant blade, same thing as Syl is now doing for Kaladin.
Yeah.
So your whole theory with it shrinking and all that.
Yeah. So not an honor blade.
Kind of right, kind of wrong. Yeah.
Not
so,
an honor blade. It's just pattern. It was
I don't
pattern
know
all
if this
along.
whole thing is. Yeah, this whole thing is explained a little later, but I'll just cover it now. So you got honor blades, right? Those are from the heralds.
Yes.
And then all of the Spren modeled themselves when they bonded with the Knights Radiant after the honor blades, so they work the same way.
Mm-hmm. The honor blades. There were 10 honor blades. Each one would give the 2 powers of one order of Knights Radiant, right? So the Spren like really, really modeled themselves after that. So then they not only become the honor blades, and I suspect actually that at higher levels, I don't know if this is kind of a guess, but like I suspect that after they say more words, the Spren will also become the shard plate, maybe.
I'd believe that. Yeah. That makes sense.
So they become the blades, and they offer the same powers as the honor blades, which is why Szeth had the same powers as Kaladin, because Szeth was like a Windrunner. Because he had
the Windrunner honor.
He had the Windrunner honor blade, yeah.
So I think it's at this part finally, perhaps. So we know that summoning these for the Knights Radiant don't have to be the 10 heartbeats thing.
Yeah, so you can instantly summon it, which is cool.
Right, yeah, which is super useful.
And Shallan has been treating she's been treating her pattern blade like a normal shard blade this whole time. Because of repressed memories, so...
Yeah, thanks a lot, Shallan.
Yeah, she just PTSD tricked us.
Man, your PTSD sure is inconvenient for us, Shallan. Yeah. So then, I think it's Pattern or somebody, when they're talking about this, not taking a heartbeats thing, the delay is primarily something of the dead, which we find out later exactly what that means.
Yes.
Why it takes 10 heartbeats for regular shard blades as opposed to these Spren or Honor Blade shard blades.
Also,
so much
while
terminology.
Shallan is doing all of this stuff with the Oathgate, she, really obviously displays her rating abilities and her shard blade to all of the Ardents and whatnot, all of the researchers standing about. So that is now totally common knowledge, even though she asked Dalinar to hide it earlier. Yeah. When there's a need, she's like, well, whatever, this is more important, everyone can know.
Right.
And now...
Yeah, can't really hide it. And then the Oathgate works. She's like, wait, I gotta use my blade, I think. Yep. Don't ask me why. And then she does, and hot dog, they get all transported.
Szeth is like, wait a minute, I don't have to fight Kaladin. I can just run away and go kill Dalinar. Szeth tries to fly down to Earth.
He knows where Urithiru is, as we know. So Kaladin is chasing after him, and he's doing everything just as well. And Szeth is like, "You're new to this," and Kaladin is like, "Shut up, no, I'm not." Yeah. And Szeth is in like complete denial, right? Like I think as we were talking about with our fence analogy of last time, like I think he knows that the grass is greener on the other side, but he refuses to budge. He's like, "It's an honor blade. That's what it is. I'm truthless. Like my life is easier this way." He's like totally insane. He's running to Urithiru, but Kaladin is chasing him just fine. They go through the storm, which is like injuring them just as much as healing them.
Yeah. So Szeth realizes that Dalinar got teleported to Urithiru when Shallan triggered the Oathgate, right? So he starts flying off that way. Kaladin's like, "Oh my god, I have to chase this guy down. If I lose him, he knows apparently where Dalinar went, and I don't. So
right, just gotta.
So they're both just riding the storm.
Yep, and they get to a point where they're just kind of clashing, being chased, and Szeth finally he gives up. He's like, "All right, yep, I guess the Knights Radiant are back. I was never truthless. All those deaths were my fault. I give up," and he just drops his shard blade and calls it a day.
And lets Kaladin just
honor blade, rather.
Well, kill him super hard, right?
Yep. So he just like leaves Szeth to plummet to the earth without his honor blade abilities. So he's totally gonna die when he hits the ground, and if not that, the storm will kill him.
I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought the Kaladin straight up severed his spine or something, didn't he?
Oh, I don't think
Was
so.
it just his hand?
I think so, yeah.
Huh. Whoopsie daisy.
Yeah, no, I think he just lets him plummet to the earth. And he knows without his Stormlight powers, there's no way he's going to survive. So.
And Kaladin catches the blade before it falls, and this one doesn't scream because it's
Right.
an honor blade. Bada bing, bada boom.
Yeah, and Syl's like, you need to catch that because it's super dangerous in the wrong hands, as we have an abundance of evidence.
Yeah.
For.
So he recovers the honor blade of the Windrunners. Very cool.
Yep. Solid.
If Kaladin wants, he could dual wield shard blades now. That would be dope. No.
Yeah. Hey,
Alternatively, give it to somebody who doesn't have cool Windrunner powers, but it would be nice if they had them, right?
Right. Yeah. Yep. And that's pretty much that.
The next one, chaos in Alethkar is, of course, inevitable. Watch carefully and do not let power in the kingdom solidify. The Blackthorn could become an ally or our greatest foe, depending on whether he takes the path of the warlord or not. If he seems likely to sue for peace, assassinate him expeditiously. The risk of competition is too great. So.
Yep. There can be only one man to save the world.
Yep.
And it's Taravangian by his own thinking.
It sounds like because Dalinar has ended up going like peace
Path of the politician.
Peace politician mode, yeah. He is now, but he could potentially become the ruler of the whole world if Taravangian's
Yep.
not careful about it.
Yep. And it's hard to say who's doing a better job. They definitely have different approaches, but I think I'd prefer Dalinar.
Yeah, and well, now that Szeth is gone, I mean, Szeth was like Taravangian's only real weapon, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now that Szeth is gone, I think Dalinar might be a little bit harder to kill.
Right, Taravangian's like his biggest advantage is just totally gone now.
Kaladin heads back to the Oathgate on the Shattered Plains.
Mm-hmm. And he and Syl are talking, giving us some lore.
Mm-hmm.
So, just confirms all the things about the Honor Blades. Talks about the Radiant Blades. We find out regular Shard Blades are dead.
Yes.
So, kind of makes a lot of more sense based on the Recreants. So, it kind of made me wonder too how Shard Plate is related to that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But that kind of goes back to when Navani was talking about adding the gemstone to summon them and all that jazz. They're just not. They're like the Radiant Blades, but worse because the Sprint are dead. But Sprint can't die like humans can.
Yeah.
But they can be.
It turns out that if you sync your heartbeat with a dead Sprint, you can still use that Shard Blade. And that was the whole 10 heartbeat deal. Was that you had to kind of like lend it a little bit of your life force or something so it would do a thing. Don't know.
Yeah, because they're not dead, but they'll. Yeah, that's their chance to like live for a little bit while the blade is summoned.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Kind of weird, kind of confusing.
Yeah, and they're just chatting. Kaladin gets back. Bridgeforth is there waiting for him.
Mm-hmm.
Kaladin learns that his eyes have become a pale blue.
Mm-hmm.
He now has lighter eyes than the kingliest of kings.
Yeah. Bummer.
Whoops, that's awkward for somebody who identifies so strongly with being dark eyes, huh?
Yep. So we find out too from Syl that the Order of the Radiance were more than just knights. There are other people that had interactions with Stormlight in some way or other. And what do you know?
In that they weren't all warriors? Or
right, she just said there were more than just. Yeah, I think that's what she means.
Mm-hmm.
And so Lopen is like, I can do what Kaladin does. I just got to figure it out.
Oh, or are you talking about how? Yeah, no, I think I know what you're talking about. There were the knights, and then the knights had cohorts or something.
Right, yeah. I don't know what they weren't specific about it, but it sounds like there's radiant scholars.
We could call them squires or something. So
yeah.
It sounded like there might be one person that is a knight radiant, and then they might have other people they just sort of choose who maybe also get those powers based on what we're about to see with Lopen.
Right. So yeah, he just figures it out. He's just sitting there with a sphere. He's been trying this forever, and eventually he sucks in the Stormlight. He's like, "Hey, buddy, come in here. Let me stick you to a wall."
Yeah. And I think it's somewhat safe to assume that all of Bridge 4 is about to start flying around. So it's kind of a bummer for Moash that he left when he did, because he's missing out on some cool,
big bummer.
Some cool powers.
Yeah. Oh, and yeah, we find out right at the end of this chapter, Moash is just hanging out with Graves now. He's like kind of buddied with him, and so Graves is just gonna take him over to join Team Taravangian.
Yep, Moash and Graves are fleeing the war camps, and yep, they're gonna go Team Taravangian. Oy.
So that'll be interesting to see when they clash because Moash still...
And Lopin's arm is going back, which by my estimation will nullify about 3/4 of his jokes.
Yeah. Real bummer for, his whole character.
The next part of the diagram is literally just a series of numbers. Oh, it's like 10 groups of numbers that are all almost the same.
Right, they have similar first digits. But...
Somebody on the internet theorized that they're dates.
Oh, sure.
Couldn't tell you.
Maybe. Yep. Okay, so a bunch of stuff happens in this one.
Now we're definitely in the falling action of all. I guess we were last chapter as well.
Yes. But we've reached the pool at the bottom of the waterfall now.
Yes.
So Shallan is just like walking through this whole tower, kind of figuring out the whole layout of the Earth here.
Mm-hmm.
But she's like super duper tired. Can't really blame her. And there's a little note from the Ghost Bloods on the wall that says her real name in it, Shallan, rather than Vale. And she's like, I've been found out. They're gonna kill me. What's gonna happen?
Yeah.
And Maurice is like right there. He's like, hey,
step into my office.
Yeah. And oh man, this whole conversation made me like Maurice and the Ghost Bloods so much more than I already did.
Yeah. Well, they're ambitious, aren't they?
Yeah. And it seems like they're pretty good at what they do so far. I mean, sure, Shallan did a lot for him, but, like, they're doing stuff. So basically he's saying, like, we know that you're now this person, right?
Mm-hmm.
We know that you're a Radiant, and, hey, you're still a Ghost Blood,
Yeah.
We made that up.
She's like, I can't be a Ghost Blood, I'm a Radiant. He's like, what do you mean? Being a Radiant seems like it would make you a really good Ghost Blood.
Yeah, and she's like, that seems so incongruous. And he's like, we have your brother. She's like, I'll kill you. And he's like, and I'm going to give him back as a gift.
Like, no, they're on their way here. Like, you can see him whenever. Like, no.
Right. And he's like, join the Ghost Blades or else. She's like, I'll kill you. And he's like, and by or else I mean the other thing you might want to do. No pressure.
Yeah. I mean, hey, the choice is yours. Your brothers are cool. We're cool.
Right. And
you do technically owe me a broken soulcaster, but
soulcaster, yeah. Other than that, your debts are paid.
Yeah, Maurice is pretty cool. Everything he says is like mildly threatening, and it's hard for me to know exactly how threatening this is.
Right. Well, his whole air is like that because she's like, he's all dressed up and looks real fancy, but he could also kill me without a second thought.
Yeah.
He's got that duality about him.
The Ghost Bloods try to assassinate Amaram real quick.
Yep. He is trying to kidnap Talon, and they're just waiting in the dark for him, trying to kill him. But he manages to evade that assassination attempt because Talon is just like catching these poison darts out of
because Talon is like an epic warrior of legend. He just also happens to be crazy,
right.
Yeah,
right. Lucky for Amaram that he happened to be in front of this perfect shield for this thing to happen.
Yeah. If they had literally just waited for Amaram to leave that room, Amaram would be dead. But because tried to assassinate him with a little bit bad timing. Also, Shallan, we finally get the rest of her backstory.
Yeah, we get a surprise flashback.
Yeah.
Because it's happening in real time. So Adolin's like, yeah, here's your room, pattern decorated for you.
And it turns out that pattern decorated such that it looked like her father's study where she killed her mom, right?
Yep. So we finally see why that happened.
Yep. So Shallan has this flashback. She tries to resist it just like she always does, but Pattern is like, no, it's time. Like,
right. The readers deserve to know.
Yeah.
Shallan. And so basically what had happened was, so in the strong box we find out was Pattern in shard blade form, right? Which doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, her father put him in there, but he could just turn to mist and she could summon him again because, of course,
Yeah, and in the reading, she said like her father wasn't really thinking straight, and it's like, okay, well, that's still pretty lame though. And like she kept referring to it as her mother's soul was in the strongbox, and Pattern is like, no, it is the thing that took your mother's soul, and I'm like, ugh.
Okay, that was super duper lame. Yeah.
Yeah.
But whatever. So we find out that the reason that she killed her mom in the first place was because her mom was trying to kill her, basically. Like, she got a friend there.
And it sounded like it was because Shallan was already showing some, Knight's radiant powers. Mm-hmm. So this mom brought her friend over, who I had originally assumed was, like, someone she was cheating with or something, right?
Right. Yep.
But now it sounds like this person may have been part of one of apparently many secret societies in the world who either do or do not want the Radiance to return.
Right. Can't blame the world for having a bunch of those, given the state of the planet.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then Shallan is like literally being attacked by this guy, and Pattern just like summons himself as the sword, and she has to kill this friend and her mom, and she's real upset about it. And this like ruins her family's reputation because her father takes responsibility.
Yeah.
So that just destroys her reputation, and so she's really angry at Pattern, and Pattern's like, well, you'll kill me eventually, I'll have your revenge.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much that whole thing. But, the vault thing was so lame.
The vault thing was lame, but also I like this that she always, through all of her flashbacks, really tried to protect her father, right? Mm-hmm. And it was always something where I was like, geez, Shallan, stop. Like, this guy's such a bad guy, right? But now here we're seeing, there was this moment where he actually, really, really gave up his reputation and everything to defend Shallan, right? So now she's kind of paying it back through the rest of her flashbacks.
Yep. So now she's mad at Pattern, but I don't know, what else was he supposed to do?
Amaram also steals Talon. Amaram now has Talonel Elid, so.
Right, and he knows for a fact that he's a herald. He's totally on board.
Yes.
Which I guess we kind of already knew.
Also, Szeth alive.
Yeah, give me like 1 second
okay.
before we get to that. So Amaram talks about how he's working for Rastairs.
Oh, yeah.
How do you say that name? Which I think we've heard that before. I don't remember exactly what his deal is.
Was that when Shallan was listening in on those Ghostbloods talking about those two people or something like that?
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Maybe.
Yeah, Rastairs was like the other society against the Ghostbloods. He was like the one that Maurice was kind of brushing off.
That would make a lot of sense. I'll go back. I'll just look it up, actually. I'll Google and see if the Coppermind or whatever can give us some more information on that.
Oh God, I'm never Googling anything in this book until we finish.
Yeah, it's too risky. You have to finish the whole series.
I've ruined so many things in the past by Googling innocuous things.
Oh, sure.
So, yeah. But anyway, so Szeth, he's fine. What?
Death is fine.
Why? How?
It turns out that death is actually kind of all just willy-nilly, and it doesn't really mean anything.
Right.
So yeah,
this is
Szeth
no problem.
Szeth did crash into the earth, and he did die, and his soul did completely leave his body.
Correct.
But now, he has been stumbled upon by a herald.
Right. Pale Moon Birthmark, man.
And Darkness, as Lift calls him.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
He was the Herald of Justice all along. Nin is his name.
Yep.
Or Nalan.
And he's got the power of restoration. So he's like, Szeth, silly kid. Boop. There you go.
It's like mega
restoration. If I had been a second later,
he literally
would actually
brought
be
back
dead.
from the dead, right? Didn't he literally bring him back from the dead?
Right. I mean, he did say that, like, had he waited longer, it wouldn't have been possible. But
because he said the brain was still kind of doing its thing or whatever, right?
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. It's like once you reach total brain dead, you're actually done so. But
and he says, Szeth, why don't you come do justice with me? We could be cool justice bros. And
right, yeah.
We already know that
saved your life. You're not a truthless. Like, time to start over, bud.
We already know that both of these guys have pretty twisted takes on justice, but also they are kind of synergistic.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, he tells him to be a skybreaker, right, which is his order.
Yep.
And he's like, you know what would be a great start? Those leaders of Shin, they said you were truthless. How wrong were they?
They got all those honor blades.
Sounds like they could
just
use
not even doing anything over there.
Some solid justice right about now.
Yeah.
He cracks his knuckles.
And he gives Zeth...
And Zeth's like, well, okay. And then the best part of this whole book...
He gives Zeth a sword.
He gives Zeth a sword that says, hello, would you like to slay some evil today? And just as I read this line, the narrator for Warbreaker, who voiced Nightblood, just popped into my head, and I was like, oh baby, here we go. The best character from that book. Here he is.
Yeah, so this is one of the main reasons I really want to reread that book, like stat.
Right, yeah.
Because I hardly even remember the significance of this sword. But right. I know that it
Lucas
is.
100% spoiled this for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, before I read the first book, he was like, yeah, you should read Warbreaker, because Nightblood shows up in Stormlight Archive. I was like, what?
Huh, okay.
And so at this point I was like, well, I'm still jazzed about it.
Yeah.
And, oh my god, Zeth with Nightblood sounds like an even worse combination somehow than what it just happened.
Why don't you go ahead and briefly describe the power of this sword? If you want to read Warbreaker before we go on, go ahead and read it really quick. Pause this video, read the book, and then hit play again.
And then unpause, yeah. So, Nightblood, as far as I remember, it's been a hot minute since I read Warbreaker, but basically he's, this guy in a sheath, this sword, sentient. He's all about killing evildoers, and he'll just kind of decide who's an evildoer just so he can get some killing.
Doesn't he just want to kill everything? And then he's like, in retrospect, he's like, oh yeah, that was evil. Yeah, that guy was evil.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he rationalizes it.
Yeah.
But this thing is powerful as heck. Like, a lot of the times in Warbreaker, if somebody needed killing, the guy who had him would just, like, unlatch the sheath, pull him out a little bit, and just, like, toss him in the street. And he would come back, and there would be dead people everywhere.
Sure. And doesn't he, like, billow, like, black murder smoke? Doesn't the smoke kill stuff for him as well? Yeah.
Yep, that's mostly what does it. And then at the end of Warbreaker, the guy that owns him actually unsheaths him, and oh my god, it's like horrifying destructive power.
Yeah.
Like, Nightblood is like the most powerful weapon that exists, being paired with Zeth, who was previously the most powerful weapon that existed.
Yeah, this is going to be a little bit nutty. At least Zeth can't fly anymore. That's nice.
Right, yeah, but who knows what he'll be capable of now.
Yeah, if we hear something at like the start of the next book about how all the Shin leaders are just mysteriously dead, I'll be like, alright, not surprising.
Yeah. Nin says that Nightblood is a shard blade. I don't know if that's true or not. Not sure if his like sentience is Spren related somehow.
Yeah, is he a shard blade, or is he just telling? Is he just telling Zeth that because it's something Zeth would understand?
Yeah, it might be that. Because even when he throws it to him unsheathed, or like just pulled out of the sheath a little bit, and Zeth was like, it was billowing smoke like dark stormlight or something, just to put it in context of this world. So yeah, we'll see what happens. That's absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, but it's pretty hype. All right, and last chapter of the whole gosh darn book.
Yep.
There has to be an answer.
Here it is.
What is the answer? Stop. The Barshendi, one of them. Yes, they are the missing piece. Push for the Alethi to destroy them outright before this one obtains their power. It will form a bridge. One of the Barshendi is gonna obtain their power. I don't think this is the Stormform thing. I think this is something else, because that was more than one Barshendi.
Really? Yeah, I suppose.
Could it be R'lain? Is he maybe the one who will do a thing?
Well, they've been like wiped out. Like the Alethi more or less won.
Yeah.
Killing all these. Like they set the Everstorm in motion, but
here's what I'm thinking. This Barshendi is going to form a bridge. It's going to obtain its power. Could the power R'lain is going to obtain be the Windrunner power that Lopen just got? Because he's also Bridge 4, right? And is this act of a Barshendi somehow getting radiant powers going to form this metaphorical bridge? I don't know what that means exactly, but it sounds very viable in my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. I just realized this is like a complete aside that has hardly anything to do with anything. But, so, when he was a Parshman, his name was Shen, right? Like the lead character. And now that he's R'lain, I just picture him as like the infernal Shen skin.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know what, like, because he's like...
Did you picture him as
I know
the
he's not
base
in Stormform
Shen skin earlier?
No, I didn't. Just as regular parchment, but they're all kind of red anyway.
Yeah.
So I think I just like see that in my mind now.
Sure.
So Dalinar has this weird little mini flashback to when he was a kid, and now are we setting up for Dalinar flashbacks on Oathbreaker?
It's while he's sleeping, and it feels like one of his visions that he gets from the Stormfather.
Right. And we find out later that it was not a vision sent to him. Like, nobody did this.
But he's like adamant that it felt like one.
I think somebody did. Yeah. And it's not even like that important, you know. It's just like a flashback to when he was a kid. Like, no real groundbreaking stuff in there.
And next we have a little Adolin scene that makes me not quite sure how I feel. I don't know if I like...
Yeah, I don't
know if this makes me like Adolin more or less. It's just...
Oh, God. This was the weirdest thing. So, well, let's say what happened and we'll get into it. So Sadeas, ever conniving, has a new strategy to undermine Dalinar with.
Yes.
He's just goading Adolin as he is wont to do. And Adolin's like, all right, that's it. Murders him.
Yeah, Adolin, so...
just kills him.
Adolin is just out scouting Eurythera. It's a big place. They don't know what's where, you know. And he alone runs into Sadeas. And they have a little talk. And Sadeas is all, conniving. And he's saying, like, ooh, I already have a whole plethora of stratagem to ruin your father's reputation in the next book. I will be an ongoing villain. And Adolin is like, okay, well, that's just not going to fly.
Right. He finally snaps. He literally says, like, he finally snapped. And he just jumps on him, shoves a dagger straight through his eye, kills him outright.
Yeah, right up into his brain, wiggles it around a little.
And he was like, my father thinks I'm as good as him. Unfortunately for you, he's wrong, and just kills him.
Yeah.
And Sadeas is like totally caught off guard by this. Like, he never saw this coming.
Adolin just murders Sadeas. Oathbringer drops to the ground, which is, now Sadeas' Shardblade. Adolin just tosses it out the window,
Yep. He's like, I know where to find it.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I guess the next book is Oathbringer, so we maybe had to get that back.
Yeah, so, like, holy moly, Sadeas dead. Although, given some other characters who it sounded like they were dead in this, maybe he's still alive somehow. It sounds like death is pretty negotiable.
Right, yeah. Yep, I was a little mad about it. But it was so funny because, like, when this happened, right, Sadeas comes over and I'm like, oh my gosh, he's just going to be a dick to Adolin.
Yep.
And, like, he's going to go to him talking about how he's undermining him. But I was thinking, like, I, like, paused, like, as I read the beginning of this chapter. I was like, what is Sadeas even good for?
Yeah.
Like, nothing he really does affects anything.
Yeah.
And then I read a little bit more, and he's doing the thing where he's, like, pushing Adolin's buttons, and I was like, one of these days, Adolin's just going to straight up kill him. And then it happened, and I was like, well, not now.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't think this was actually going to happen. I was kidding.
Yeah, that was kind of crazy. I mean, let's just be straight, though. That's not very honorable at all of Adolin.
No. Yeah,
his dad would not be pleased.
Not nearly as good as we think he is, but he's got pretty solid deniability. He just leaves the body there, goes to another place, pretend that's where he's been the whole time.
Yeah, and like
erases the chalk that showed where he was.
Frankly, I mean, he didn't even use his Shardblade to kill him, right? So,
right.
I mean,
yeah,
I think it's probably safe to. I think generally the assumption would probably be like, well, if they had a Shardblade, they would have used that, right? So the fact that he just did it with a knife, maybe that is, maybe that also gives him deniability.
Yeah, this was probably the biggest surprise of all the things that happened in this last bit to me.
Yeah, I was really ready for this because Nick just read this book. One of my roommates, right? Mm-hmm. And he was talking about this just the other day, and I was like, oh, is that at the end of this book? And he was like, yeah, and I was like, all right, here we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here we go.
So I mean, Sadeas had to die eventually.
You're right. I mean, yeah, he couldn't go on.
But holy moly, yeah. My opinion of Adolin just changed a little bit because Adolin really has been just very, very good up to this point.
Right, he's been great. Yeah, he was going up and up, and now in my mind I'm like, whoa, solid. We're on the down.
And now, I mean, what we've set up is just a tiny
value.
bit of precedent, right? For like, Adolin could turn bad, right?
Yeah.
Like he
right. I mean, if you're willing to murder somebody pretty much in cold blood, like, I mean, don't get me wrong, Sadeas is a terrible person, but like still,
yeah, we just have a little nugget
just
now.
Murdered him on impulse.
Adolin might go back.
Straight up second degree murder right here. You could argue for first degree if you're a good lawyer.
But then a good defense attorney would argue for third. So,
but isn't second like crime of passion.
And is third manslaughter then?
I think third is like manslaughter.
And
yeah.
first is premeditated.
Yeah.
Okay, regardless. There's only one little bit left. Dalinar is up on the roof of your theater at the highest point, and he is just yelling at the Stormfather, like, what, you're a jerk, Stormfather, I don't like you. And the Stormfather says, well, I don't like you either.
Yeah. And Dalinar's like, hey, could we bond? Can you make me a Radiant? If I'm going to lead him, I probably should be one. And the Stormfather's like, I don't want to. And he's like, what if I say the right words? And Stormfather's like, you better not.
Dalinar basically just like pure force of will strong arms the Stormfather into being his spren, right? Like the Stormfather is expressing like severe disinterest, and Dalinar's like, I've got a strong case, and I'll listen here, you, and he just straight up convinces him.
He just forces him to bind with him, but the Stormfather's like, okay, but I'm not like other Spren of the Radiance. You're not gonna have shards. I'm not gonna be your shard blade and all that. Like,
but still,
you're just gonna have to deal with that.
He gets made a bondsmith. He binds the Stormfather.
The Stormfather, yeah.
It sounds like a big deal.
Yeah, no, this is crazy. Like, he's just straight up Radiant now.
So bada bing, bada boom. Dalinar, everyone else has to have, like, all this trauma and stuff happen, and Dalinar just wants it bad enough, and Dalinar gets what he wants because he's such a baller. I dig it.
Quick random detail, the other 9 oath gates are locked to the other places.
Yes.
Like, they straight up will not work the same way the one to the Shattered place.
Yeah, so they're going to have to go... now, I think a main story point in the next book is probably going to be figuring out how to unlock those, which I think they do want, right?
Yeah. Shallan and Amani are going to be on that. We find out as well from the Stormfather that the Everstorm is going to start coming like high storms now regularly from
the west,
the other way.
But it'll be less frequent.
Yes. And it's when it comes, any parchment it hits, Voidbringer. Right there.
Boom. Yikes.
So, Yesna's theory about that was right, and there are way more parchment out there than there were Parshendi. So
yeah, and
Yike-a-rooney.
This Everstorm is circling the world like right now. Like, this is kind of an urgently, immediately important fact. Right. And there are a whole lot of people out there who are going to get killed by this storm, and I think that they just can't really stop it.
Yep. Dalinar sent out this message, but it sounds so ridiculous. Everybody thinks Dalinar's crazy because of his visions. Well, he's saying a storm's coming the wrong way that's going to turn your parchment into Voidbringers. Like,
and even if everybody like instantly trusted him and top priority mitigate damage, I suspect the damage would still be severe.
Oh yeah, probably.
So among people who would be hit by this Everstorm are Kaladin's family, Kaladin's parents.
Mm-hmm.
So Kaladin's like, I'm gonna skedaddle real quick. And Dalinar is like, you're an adult, you can do what you want.
Yep.
They do have a little meeting first of the Radiance, being Shallan, Kaladin, and Dalinar. And who's this? Where are his glasses? Oh, the reason he broke down in the arena wasn't because he's a little baby boy. It's because
epilepsy.
It's because his sword screamed at him. Okay.
Right, and he was like, I thought it was my fault because Renarin sucks.
Turns out, Renarin has also been a Knight Radiant, but unlike Kaladin, who was keeping it a secret because he just doesn't really trust people and he's paranoid, Renarin was keeping it a secret because he was like, well, I just mess up all the time, so maybe I was messing up again. And I'm like, Renarin, you suck.
I thought this was my fault.
I hate Renarin.
The worst.
But whatever.
Yeah, I don't like him.
I guess that he's like a truth seer or whatever his thing was.
Truth Watcher.
Truth Watcher. And who even knows what that
powers
means?
That I see. Yeah. My note here, I was like, Renarin is Radiant. Adolin's gonna feel so terrible with Shallan as well.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's a good point. Like all of the people Adolin surrounds himself with are just Radiants now.
Right, are just cooler than he is. Pretty objective.
Yeah, that kind of sucks. I don't know. I think Adolin. I think Adolin, just like default Adolin, is still probably cooler than Radiant Renarin.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I was like, Renarin kept his shard blade because he was a massive expletive and thought it was his fault. My God, all right, whatever.
What a loser, yeah. So
his spren is named Gliss.
Yep.
Whatever.
And I'm sure we'll learn what his powers are later, and it'll be cool.
Random throwaway comment here. There's a plague in the Pure Lake?
Oh,
That
yes.
doesn't sound good.
I do recall that, and I bet that is another one of the unmade. Just because we were like just learning about them, and I don't think there would just randomly be a plague amongst all this other stuff. I suspect that we're gonna figure out later that's an unmade's doing.
Yeah, like we find out the whole world's in disrepair, but that one was just like something that hadn't been mentioned. I was like,
yeah.
But yeah, I could see that being an unmade. That's a good point.
And
then we get to the epilogue.
The epilogue, yes.
The epilogue, as it is spoken in its native tongue.
So, Hoyd continues to be all-knowing.
Yep.
And
he's, he's a planeswalker. He's above even heralds, whatever.
Yeah, it's
cool.
It's no biggie. So he's just out talking to a big lizard or something.
Yeah. Just trying to be all witty.
Just philosophizing, pontificating, other big words.
Yeah, I really liked his whole art and expectations TED talk.
Yeah, it was fun.
And then Brandon Sanderson come on, man, just wake up in the morning before you write your next book. Inject 50 cc's, less even, 10 cc's of George R.R. Martin.
I mean,
and his, absolute disregard for human life.
We've seen that having Stormlight all up in you does make you pretty immortal. We've commented on it, right?
Yeah.
However, I mean, when a character gets stabbed through the heart on screen, I just feel like that should mean something,
Right.
I remember back in my day when a character got stabbed through the heart on screen, that character was dead, right?
It's just annoying because, Brandon Sanderson is so good at writing. He's so good at avoiding cliches, and his whole thing, like we've talked about, is not having these miraculous, contrived things happening. And this is 1,000% that.
John, I'm happy you're angry about this, because I recently told Lucas about how I was angry about this, and Lucas was like, "Oh, really?" Like, he didn't get it. He thought it was totally reasonable and cool, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?"
No. Because, Zeth, I'm not that upset about, right? Because, we had the whole thing with Lift. We understand that's a thing. And, even the guy says, he explains, he's like, you were straight up dead. Had I been any later, you would have been for real dead, right? Dead with a sideways turned gun. But with Yesna, it was she died 1,000,000 years ago. I accepted it. I moved on.
Yeah, it's been an established fact that Yesna's dead for a full book now.
Right, and it's Brandon Sanderson is not he's not like George R.R. Martin. He's not going around killing characters indiscriminately for the fun shock factor.
Yeah.
And that's fine. That's just his style. I don't care. But when a character dies, I'm like, oh great, this is a bigger deal somehow because it never happens. Yep. And now, it's had Yesna died after I had all this knowledge that she could come back to life or be immortal or whatever, I would have been less angry about it. I think.
Yeah. No, I mean,
it's just.
Well, and this is...
He wanted you to think she was dead. This was supposed to be the big final twist, and just, I don't know, it was left a sour taste in my mouth.
I absolutely agree. I'm happy you agree with me. Well, I'm not happy it left a sour taste in your mouth. That's a bummer. But it also left a sour taste in my mouth. Either way.
Yeah, I'm glad we're on the same page.
Yesna's alive. Apparently, it doesn't say, exactly how she got from being stabbed in the heart on a boat and then falling into the ocean to here, right?
Don't want to hear about it.
But the theory is that she got stabbed in the heart in the boat, and then as soon as everybody looked away, she just kind of healed herself up and used her else caller powers or whatever it is to just pop into Shadesmark.
Yeah, I don't remember. So she's been hanging out there. She's in a rough shape.
She's been navigating Sprint Society, just trying to get back this whole time, apparently.
Mm-hmm. And this whole thing, I'm now at this point, I'm okay, whatever. This is reality now. Don't tell me anything about how she got here. Let's just go from where we are.
Yeah. And then
just get past it.
It just sort of ends with, Wit's sitting there just waiting for her because he knew where she was going to end up. Wit can definitely see the future. Hoyd can see the future somehow.
Yeah.
And we're gonna find out why sooner or later, and I can't wait for that to happen.
How many powers of different worlds is he using in tandem?
Yeah, really. And Yasna's like, oh, I'll kill you. And he's like, don't. We could share fun info with each other. And she's like, well, I do like fun info.
And he's like, also that shard blade is like a stick to me. I'm a god.
Yeah. So they just kind of stroll off. Apparently they're going to give each other a lot of really relevant information. And presumably early in the next book, Yasna's just going to pop up. And that'll be cool.
Another Radiant.
Yeah.
Solid. And that's it. That's the end.
So, hey, that was that book, and I realize this has been a long episode already. So, if you want to stop listening now, be my guest. Otherwise, we're going to do a quick retrospective. Yeah, so, John, what do you think of Words of Radiance?
Well, I don't know. It's hard to, like, look at it as a whole because the epilogue made me so mad.
Sure.
About Yasna coming out of the machine, but I don't know. As the whole, I mean, I definitely enjoyed it. I mean, I love the whole Stormlight archive, of course.
Wow, actually,
I think as all
really quick. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
So, for all of these beginning of chapter things, I'm just pulling up the chapter summary pages on the Stormlight Archives wiki, right? And I just spotted out of the corner of my eye a section for this epilogue called Development of the Chapter. And it says, Yasna is alive! While some readers are delighted to learn that she isn't dead, other readers are delighted to have their belief that she never really was dead confirmed. What about the third variety of readers?
Right, well, I feel underrepresented. Yeah, they're like, well, some people were super glad about it being her alive. A completely different group were also really glad about it.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Okay, all right.
God,
yeah, moving on though.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I liked it quite as much as the first, and it's interesting because I haven't read a ton of Brandon Sanderson. I've read Elantris, I've read Mistborn Era 1, I've read Warbreaker, and now these first two books. And I just really like Brandon Sanderson's whole thing where, like, you know, the whole book is interesting for its own reasons. At the end, a whole bunch of stuff happens, and all these secrets are revealed, and it's super exciting. Yeah. And Mistborn was, like, really good about that. Like, the ending of the first book and the second book were completely unexpected things.
I mean, the ending of the first Mistborn. Well, I don't want to tread into the spoilers.
Yeah, we don't need to go.
Either way, good. It was good. I agree.
Yeah, and then the third book, you know, great ending, all about it. And in the end of the first book, Way of Kings, for the Stormlight Archive, you know, we had the whole Terravangian murder hospital. That was super crazy, big twist, very exciting. And this one, I was like, as everything was happening, I was like, all right, yeah, I mean, like, we knew this all had to be resolved. You know, like, of course they're going to open the Oath Gate. Like, of course they're going to beat the Parshendi. Like, I think it was Navani's sort of after this whole happened journal entries in regards to the Doomsday Clock.
Yeah.
That I was like, well, it's all going to work out, you know?
Yeah, like, I don't know. I agree that it was pointed out so much. Like, all right, they're going to summon a storm, and we knew the Everstorm was coming. And then, like, Brandon Sanderson kind of pulled a fast one on us with this second storm also coming that was really going to wreck stuff. Right. But, like, I was already under the impression that the Everstorm alone was going to wreck stuff.
Was bad enough.
So now, like, this other storm is coming, and I'm like, oh, so I guess it's, like earlier it was, like, devastating, and now I'm like, I guess it's more devastating? I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I don't know. I guess as a whole, and again, this is very much colored by, like, these last things that happened. So I didn't like it as much as the first. I mean, I still love the Stormlight Archive as a story, and I can't understand the difficulty it must be to, you know, bury these little nuggets of, like, the overarching plot and the plot of the book itself. Yeah. So I can't be too judgmental, but, like, I think Brandon Sanderson doesn't normally do this, but he kind of beat us over the head with some things a little bit.
Yeah.
To the point where when the big, fun, exciting twists at the end happened, I was like, well, yeah.
The thing is that I agree with you that I like this book, but I liked Words of Radiance more. Or The Way of Kings more.
Way of Kings.
Because in this book, I guess in Way of Kings, I really love Kaladin's whole arc. As we've kind of discussed before, Brandon Sanderson does a really good job at writing these little stories where your character starts out just in the bottom of the deepest pit, and then against great odds, with everything going against them, they manage to climb and improve their situation. And that's fun to read. I really like that, and Brandon Sanderson does a really good job at it. And that was Kaladin's arc in the first book, right? And that was great, and I loved it. It was super fun. But then in this book, we were less focused. well, I guess in this book, first of all, Kaladin's arc sucked, and I hated it. Because Kaladin was just like, everything was just getting worse and worse and worse and worse.
He just plateaued at the bottom for a long time.
And then the payoff was pretty cool. Because Kaladin, like, ascended to a higher level of Radiance than he had been before, and he finally kind of overcame these struggles about, you know, like, well, he learned, he has to protect even those he hates, and he became just, like, a super cool dude all at once. And that was neat.
Yeah.
But honestly, I hated the parts where he was just falling into this pit so much that the payoff didn't outweigh it for me.
Right, it wasn't as sweet, yeah. Because I was like, well, we've been through Kaladin overcoming adversity, and I knew throughout the whole pits that he was going to come out ahead anyway. And so I was like, what's the point?
It was just it's just not fun to read about how a character's depression is driving him to ruin his whole life. You know, like that's just not very. I don't personally enjoy that very much.
Right. Especially when you know that he's gonna get out of it.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of wasting time. Like, and what I did really like about this book, I mean, I don't want to just like rag on it this whole time, was like Shallan's whole arc through this whole thing amazing.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. That's another thing I wanted to talk about. Is that I didn't like Shallan's flashbacks like at all. Let's be honest. If you had cut all those out and put them in like a little footnote, like, oh, by the way, Shallan did this and this, and she has the press memories, I'd be like, fine. No, I'm kidding. It wasn't that bad. However, I didn't like her flashbacks very much. I didn't like Kaladin's that much either, honestly. Every time we were in the flashback bits, I just like wanted to get back to what was happening. However, like Shallan's character in this book, loved it. Oh my so goodness, so good.
Like this was definitely on the same level with Kaladin in the first book, and I think that was the point. You know, like this was a Shallan focused book.
Yeah.
It just had. The grand overarching parts of it were the less satisfying part.
Yeah,
but
I really like Shallan for this whole book, for sure.
Yeah, and the thing I like about Brandon Sanderson too, and in the way that he's different from some other fantasy I've read, is he, like we were saying with the Hunger Games at the beginning of this. If you didn't listen to this, don't worry about it. But he doesn't he takes his time.
Oh yeah,
these are long books. Like nothing's gonna feel forced, but he almost went so far around the circle he came back, in that he was like pointing to all these things, being really clever and coy. By the end I was like, yeah, you told me this was gonna happen.
Yeah.
And so it didn't feel forced so much as like he almost the anticipation had gone on so long that I got bored.
Well, it really is kind of a hard balance to strike, though, isn't it? Because there were some things where he was kind of beating over the head with, but then when Renarin was like, oh, suddenly I'm a Radiant, right? I felt like there weren't enough hints for that, Like, Shallan was suddenly like, is he not wearing his glasses? Like, the chapter before he reveals he's a Radiant, and I'm like, was he not wearing his glasses earlier and I just missed it, And I think that after his fight in the arena, there might have been lines about how, like, he was no longer pulling out his shard blade for some reason or something, but I don't really remember.
Yeah, maybe. Right. Yeah, I guess you're right. It's a hard balance to strike of being too subtle versus not subtle enough.
Yeah, and maybe we're just hard to please. I don't know.
I don't know. I think that on a story this scale, especially given the fact that this is the series, because we know that all the worlds are tied together somehow.
Yeah.
With Hoid and Odium and everybody, and so this book is has got to be the series that ties literally all of his work together. Like, I get that's tough to do.
Yeah.
So
I really
we can't be too judgmental.
I really like the pace at which he's giving us the big kind of overarching lore, the fact,
I think that's
the fact that we now have represented in characters that we're aware of 6 of the orders of Radiance, right? We have Lift, Zeth, our 4 in Urithiru, yeah. And I can't wait to meet the other 4, right? And he's really built up that anticipation for me. And I was telling us about the Unmade, and we just have little tidbits, but I'm sure it's going to become a bigger plot point. And we've even met
What's the
now.
deal with Axes? I still want to know what his deal is.
Well, whose?
Axes from the
first
book.
Yeah, please tell me more about Axes, please, dude.
Yeah.
And even finally revealing, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that Darkness, Nin or Nalan, is one of the heralds, and so is Town, and I'm certain that we're going to meet the rest of them, and we have plenty of books to do it, right? So Brandon Sanderson he's left me so much information that I so desperately want, and he's just like feeding it to me. I feel like almost the perfect speed. So I'm
it's kind of ironic in that I'm like, I don't like this book because it wasn't as good as his other ones, like absolutely hammering home what is saying in the epilogue.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, well, I agree with that, because to me this one didn't live up to Way of Kings. That being said, Way of Kings is my single favorite book Brandon Sanderson has written. So spoilers, I also think Oathbringer doesn't live up to Way of Kings, but maybe I'll change my mind the second read through. I don't know. I didn't pay as close attention to it as I would have liked the first time, because I was listening to it as an audiobook while I was at work, and you can only let something happen here while you're working.
Well, and I was going to say that too. I'm curious to see how Oathbringer and every other book eventually in the series, like, will they all be more similar to Words of Radiance, just in that, like, things are hard to pace, it's hard to give hints and too much information, and, like, I'll just learn to be fine with that. Or will it just kind of shift back into a... Because, I mean, it's hard to live up to Way of Kings, because it's like, it sets up the world, right? So part of it is just unobtainable in quality, I think.
We'll see. I'm really holding out. I think Brandon Sanderson is so incredible. Like, I mean, and let me state again that even though, Way of Kings was my favorite, and I preferred it to Words of Radiance and probably Oathbringer as well, I love all three books, right? I think all three are incredible.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I think that, if Brandon Sanderson, he's found some way to spin the wheel so that it always lands on 100, right? And sometimes he's going to land a little bit closer to the center or further away, but they're all still hundreds from your boy Sam,
Yeah. That's a good point. So that's a good... we gotta mention every now and then, like, still love it to death.
Oh.
And that's why I feel okay criticizing.
Yeah, I'm criticizing it because we talk through every single episode about the parts of the book we love, right?
We're like, Brandon Sando, he did it again.
Yeah, exactly. We've said that exact sentence, like, time and time again now.
Right.
I mean, we wouldn't be doing a freaking book club where we dedicate a lot of our time to this guy. We obviously love his books.
Right. And I was thinking about it, because with Mistborn, I mean, I loved, like, those three. And I don't know if, like, Stormlight has beaten that. I think it will, just by the sheer scale and, like, epicness of it. But Mistborn, I feel like he, Brando Sando in that could do no wrong in my eyes, even between books.
Brando Sando.
Right. And it's interesting because, like, we know Stormlight is his magnum opus, as we've said. It's the 10. It's going to tie everything together. But Mistborn's going to have 4 eras, so obviously that's, like, definitely his second favorite thing.
Yeah. And I think that whole concept is really cool, that he's going up through different eras of, I mean, by the end, it's not even going to be fantasy. It's going to be sci-fi, right?
Right, yeah. And that's going to be more... I mean, that'll be more books than Stormlight Archive books, right, in the Mistborn.
But the Mistborn ones are shorter. There are 2 books. All put together are as long as like one Stormlight book, I think, or something like that.
Right. Every Stormlight book, Sanderson says, is basically 4 books.
Yeah. So please don't believe for a second that Brandon Sanderson is not maybe my favorite author, although it is hard to wrestle that title from Terry Pratchett.
Yeah. I think Brandon Sanderson is there for me now. I mean, I want to read more stuff. I literally watched a video today about how to just read more things, and, like, I've been thinking about wanting to do that.
Sure.
I've been exploring a little bit of Neil Gaiman, and now I got to get into Good Omens as well.
Oh, Good Omens is really good. And if you are gonna,
I did steal your copy of that book. That is yours.
Oh,
that I own.
Well,
now.
Yeah, keep it. All right. Well, hey, this has gone on crazy long now. I've been recording for an hour and 39 minutes.
Yeah.
So
I think I was even longer. I think I started recording.
Yeah. Let's call it here. I mean, for next week, go ahead and read all of Edge Dancer.
Okay, I figured we were just going to.
It's 40,000 words. So it's going to be on the longer end of our normal readings. But yeah, we'll just tackle it in a week. By the way, I was interested to find out that at 40,000 word count, it's actually technically right on the border between being like a novel and a novella. It's like hard to classify at 40,000.
I was wondering like the FDA, who decides?
Yeah,
that would be the last organization.
It just depends on your standard. It's like trying to figure out whether or not you're technically a millennial. Like different based on where you look, it's different. But by Brandon Sanderson standards,
overlap.
By Brandon Sanderson standards, definitely a novella.
Right. Yeah. Well.
Yeah. So go ahead.
I really want to read The Emperor's Soul as well. I know that's been hyped up by everybody.
The Emperor's Soul is
I got the book with it in it.
I think shorter than Edge Dancer. It's pretty long though. It's really good.
Yeah.
Really good.
It's gotta be close. Yeah.
Emperor's Soul is one of my favorite pieces of Brandon Sanderson media. It's awesome.
Yeah. It's up there.
All
right.
Okay. Hey, thanks for watching / listening. We'll be back next week with Edge Dancer.
See you next time.
Bye.